All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the August 2025 OSCAL Central Online program. It is Sunday, August 17th, and I'm David Vaughn. Thanks for joining us. For new viewers, let me indicate that OSCAL 2-Rail, which is the subject of this call and program, is a model railroad scale of 1/4 inch to the foot, 1:48 proportions. It runs on 2-rail track, just like prototype trains. OSCAL 2-Rail is almost 8 times the mass of HO. The scale has detail you can see, mass you can feel, and satisfying models you can build. OSCAL Central, which sponsors this program, is a nonprofit 501c3 tax-exempt membership corporation whose mission it is to promote 2-rail OSCAL and support modelers in the scale. We are NMRA's Special Interest Group, or SIG, for OSCAL. OSCAL Central has an information-filled website at oscalcentral.com. We publish a quarterly journal and a monthly newsletter filled with interesting features about OSCAL 2-Rail products, modelers, layouts, clinics, and news. OSCAL Central maintains an active outreach program to train shows, RPM meets, and NMRA conventions. We also sponsor this monthly online program. We bring in top manufacturers, importers, and newsmakers in the scale, present layout tours of quality 2-rail OSCAL layouts, present short clinics, and provide news you can use. OSCAL 2-Rail is small in the number of active modelers, and for that reason, perhaps it operates largely below the radar without the manufacturing support, advertising, and visibility enjoyed by other scales. But the OSCAL community is tight-knit, supportive of each other and of new OSCAL modelers. We urge you to consider joining the scale. And we provide this program, as well as our website, as a service to the scale. You need not be a member of OSCAL Central to use the website or to visit this program. We think keeping the OSCAL 2-Rail community informed, educated, and cohesive is important. That said, we hope you'll see the benefit of what we do, enjoy the program, and join OSCAL Central. Go to the website, find the membership section, and follow the prompts. Your dues money makes this program and our other activities possible. Our program today features an interview with Tom Marsh. Tom founded and headed Overland Models, whose green box brass engines and rolling stock are found everywhere in our scale. We'll also hear from Joe Barker, a report on the recent successful, sold-out NMRA National Convention, and in particular, OSCAL's presence at the convention. Finally, the subject of OSCAL-specific train shows has been a topic of considerable interest in our changing generations, economy, and ways of doing business. There have been ongoing discussions about the future of such shows. A recent survey circulated by Rod Miller of OSCAL West and the loss of at least one OSCAL-specific train show underscore the currency of these particular subjects. What needs to be added to the discussion is input from people who attend or don't attend such shows. And so the final segment today will be a discussion of OSCAL-specific train shows. What do you want to ask or to tell show sponsors and anyone else who may be listening? What makes you come to such shows? What makes you not come? Do we keep such shows, or do we try and go on to something else? If they're going to remain, how do they evolve? I'd like you to jot down your thoughts as we go through the program and share your comments in the third segment. Brief announcements before turning to our featured segments. We have OSCAL shows coming up in Strasbourg on October 11th, Cleveland on November 1st and 2nd, and I want Skylar Shippey to speak briefly to that. This George Wallace Southwest OSCAL show is scheduled for Friday and Saturday, October 17 and 18, 2025 in Oklahoma City. The Indianapolis show is coming up, I believe, September 20 and 21. Paul Hansen is going to speak briefly to that. The O-Scale South is going to take place near Atlanta in early 2026. Okay. Skylar, why don't you tell us just a couple of minutes about the Cleveland show coming up, and then I want to hear from Paul Hansen about Indy.
All right, so the plan for Cleveland is November 1st. We'll have a training show from 11 to 4. The hours starting at 11 gives time for people to travel in the morning. That would have been myself included. The second day is going to be a modular meet. This is going to be the first day of the first year that we do it. I want to make this an annual event because I see modular groups and shows becoming the future for younger modelers in O-Scale. And so this coming meet in November, more or less, is just going to be a introduction and establishment of the practices of O-Scale modules. We're still currently working on standards, so the plan is to showcase the standards at the show and plan going forward to make it an annual event. So looking forward to the show, looking forward to seeing everybody there, and yeah, see you in November.
Terrific. And I would highlight the fact that the second day of the show is going to be a modular meet. Hopefully the first of a number of growing meets to better involve this part of the scale. A lot of younger and newer modelers can't necessarily work with a permanent, let alone a large layout, but modular groups are a way to attract them and give them a place to model. So that's terrific. Paul, you want to tell us briefly about Indianapolis? Paul?
Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay. The Indianapolis O-Scale meet is one month away. The time is Friday, September 19th, with 12 to 3 p.m. dealer setup, and then 3 to 7 p.m. is the open to the public. Saturday is 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Open to the public. There's going to be at least 7 layouts open. One of them open Thursday night. The remainder of them open on Friday, and some of them are open on Saturday. I will be doing an email flash through Dan Dowdy and other places that will give all the details of the layouts minus their addresses. So if anybody wants to go to the layouts, they need to pre-register ahead of time, and I will email the actual addresses 1 week before the show, or you can pick up the addresses at the hotel after noon Thursday.
Super. All right. All of these are listed on the website in the calendar of coming events. And if we missed any, take a look at the calendar, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate that. And part of the third segment, when we're talking about O-Scale shows, I see that Rod Miller is on the call. I appreciate him taken up my request that he attend, and I hope he can speak at least briefly both to O-Scale West and to the related results of his survey. So thank you. Additional item, White River Productions, which publishes a stable of model railroad magazines, including Railroad Model Craftsman, has issued a 2025 O-Scale Trains Annual, as well as its 2025 ON30 Annual. This is, at this point, almost the only O-scale 2-rail print publication around. It is an interesting set of articles, including one on the future of O-scale design in CAD and print in 3D. These are worth a read, and I encourage you to sign up and order your copy of the annuals. If we want to keep any printed publications like this, we got to support it. Thank you. All right, let's turn to our featured guest, beginning with Tom Marsh. Tom is the founder and president of Overland Models, the importer of, are you sitting down for this, over 1 million brass models. He has been a major player in brass importing, and as an O-scaler, Tom has been a particular force in O-scale, and I'm happy to hear from him. Tom, I don't know whether you are.
I'm on.
There you go. Okay, terrific. Thank you for appearing, Tom. Welcome, and I note the green box props that I had asked you to do. And let's start right out. How did you get an interest in trains?
I got a train interest in about 1947. My parents bought me my first Lionel train, and it was a steam engine. And then later on, they were kind enough to purchase the Santa Fe F units. And then after I got older, I decided I was crush them head on. So, because they were indestructible. But I enjoyed it, and I finally got into HO and realized that it was true to scale, closer than the Lionel models. And so consequently, I ended up modeling HO for a couple more decades. And then I got involved with brass models, selling them under Hobo Junction. And I met Tony Wenzel, and Tony and I traded models back and forth for quite a while. And then, but we were both unhappy with the industry as far as what they were offering. They were putting things in their catalogs, but they weren't producing those particular models. So Tony and I started checking with the importers, and Mortman was the only one that gave us the time of day and helped us set up our first operation in Korea. And so we got started with Rock M in Seoul, Korea, and that was our first start. And we took off and ran for a while and stumbled like everyone else that started. We had to learn the ins and outs and realize what customers wanted, because you can't move forward without customers. And that's very critical, and even today. But before I got involved with Overland, my very first O-scale model was a U.S. Hobbies L&N Berkshire. And I enjoyed that for a while, and then I got friends with a gentleman in Cheyenne, Wyoming, who was an engineer for UP, and I ended up buying his 35-pound big boy. So that was
Okay, I'm sorry. Hold on one sec, Tom.
yes.
We do get audio feedback, so I'm going to ask everybody that is not actually speaking to mute yourself if you would, because otherwise we will have continued audio problems. That's just the way life works. Thank you. Proceed.
Okay, so like I said, I was hooked on UP. I had always modeled the New York Central, because they went right here through Muncie, and the CNO. And my brother got married in Arvada, Colorado, and I was telling Jan one day, I said, you know, I've heard so much about UP that why don't we go to Cheyenne tomorrow? Well, that was the end of my life with model railroading, because from that point on, nothing accounted to anything except Union Pacific. I had never seen so many big diesels and so much power all at once that just changed my life totally. So when we started Overland, Tony wanted GN stuff and I wanted UP stuff. And after a couple of years, we quit as partners. He went his way with Oriental, and I went with my way with Overland Models. But then he built the GN caboose when we first started. We built that with Coop J. And then I didn't do anything with those scale until the NMRA convention, let's see, well, it was in Orlando. And I built the 3-unit turbine in O scale. And it was an enjoyable item for me to make. And on Thursday, when the show opened, I had only the A unit. And I put out in the case, and if you all remember C. Young Lee, Sam Hongsa, he had come over and he says, who made this? And I said, Ajit. Well, then the next day, I went to the post office in Orlando and picked up the B unit and put it in the case. He kept coming back and looking at it. And by Saturday, I went to the post office and I picked up the tender. So I had all 3 pieces by the end of the show. And it was very upsetting for C. Young. But a little story to this. My very first trip that Tony and I took to Korea, C. Young picked us up at our hotel and took us to Sam Hawks's factory. On the way back, he leans over to me as he's driving. He says, I will never build for Overland Models. I said, okay. Well, I said, why'd you show us the factory? I wanted you to see what a real factory looked like. So I said, okay. So we proceeded on from there. But Overland, I kept improving the product because as you build, there's shortcomings in every model. And I try to listen to the customer. The customer is who buys our models, what makes our future possible. And so it was a very good learning experience, and I have enjoyed every bit of it. But
what prompted Sam Hongsa to say, I'll never build for Overland?
Well, there was this situation with Tony that I wasn't aware of, that Tony was working as Oriental Models, and so and I didn't know it. I was unaware of it. So that's why he made the comment to me. But I will jump ahead a minute.
Okay.
In 1996, I'm at the hotel in Seoul, and C. Young calls me and he says, I want to take you to dinner tonight. And I said, that's fine. So we go to dinner, and then during the thing, he says, Mr. Marsh, why did you never not produce anything with Sam Hongsa? Why didn't you come to us? And I said, that's a good question, C. Young. I said, it seems funny that you picked me up at the hotel with Tony, and on the way back, you made that comment, I will never build for Overland Models. And I said, I honored that. I agreed with you. And I said, besides that, you never will. And so that was the end of the thing. And as you know, a couple of years later, Sam Hongsa was gone, C. Young died, and Overland was still there. But Overland, Sam Honksa had a gentleman by the name of Mr. Cho. Mr. Cho was the closest person to C. Young's father, who owned Sam Honksa. But C. Young was a chemical engineer in New York City. And his father wanted him to come back to Korea and run Sam Honksa. And he did come back, but when he got back, Mr. Cho was the next person in line. And he didn't want that to happen. So he asked around how many of his major people had a college education. Mr. Cho did not. And so when he presented this to his father agreed with him. Yes, that's a good idea. Well, that was the end of Mr. Cho. Mr. Cho then started Ajin. Ajin was probably their biggest problem because he produced very good models. And so it was always a competition with Sam Honksa and Ajin, which was also against us most of the time. So it's something we just lived with and understood. So, but my productions of O-scale stuff was really based on the fact of the people that we got to know that knew their product, knew their railroad, had access to the material, and so consequently, we were able to build some very excellent models. So,
Great. What was the first O-scale model you did? Is that the
that was the
Union Pacific?
GM Goose. That was GM Goose. We built that in 78. And then in 60, we built the turbine. 1980, excuse me.
And then when was your first steam locomotive in O?
Oh, that was the nickel plate Burke. And we produced that. Well, no, I would take that back. The first one was the Milwaukee Hiawatha, the 442. We built that in 1983. And then the Burke came in 84. The Burke was because of Richard Yeager. We all call him RP. And he worked on the Burke. So, and he had a shop in Fort Wayne, and he said, well, come on up and you can have all the access to the engine you want. So we got to be pretty regular going up there and measuring and making sure we were making the model correct.
Well, I know by the time the nickel plate Burke came out that you were already using green boxes. Had that been the pattern since the outset of Overland?
Correct. That was the thing I had chosen, yes.
And obviously there's been a lot of water over the dam in O-scale, but there's been a lot of water over the dam with the Koreans and later the Chinese. Can you tell us a little bit about how that has sort of evolved?
Well, the Koreans obviously were our main builder because Japan had made a very good presentation with Tinshoto and U.S. Hobbies, and they built some very nice models, but they generally were not true to scale. And when I first went to Korea and had my very first models made, I couldn't believe the quality that was being offered by the Koreans, and all the stuff that was being made was more detail than we'd ever seen of anything out of Japan. And it had progressed, but the builders in Korea all got together about 1986 or 85 or 86 and said, well, we're going to tell the importers what they're going to do. And that didn't go over well. And of course, they ended up losing. I know when I first went to Mr. Cho, he had lost Oriental, Sunset, I think West Side. He had lost a number of people. And I told him it was either sit down and listen, or you're going to die with the rest of them. And we became best friends, and he paid attention, and everything improved. The other builders, I had 12 builders at one time, and we ended up with basically Mr. Cho. But then during about 2002, the market changed, and the US dollar and the won, Korean won, won in favor of the won. And that, I think that scared all the importers as to what was happening in Korea. And I started looking elsewhere. And I had people say, well, why don't you go to India? Why don't you go to the Philippines? Why don't you go to China? And I chose to go to China, finding that that was the better place I thought to go, and ended up starting a factory in Shanghai, and ended up moving totally over to China. But I had sit down with Mr. Cho beforehand and explain what I was doing, why I was doing it, and the volume of traffic I was producing with him would not change. But would he help me get started in China? And it did. He come over, and him and his staff would sit down with our people, show them how to solder, and it worked out very well. Mr. O, who made all the castings for the Koreans, was a very good friend. He came to China, to our factory, and showed our people how to start making castings. So I had the basis of their help, their support, but it was amazing. I had always been on the buying side. Now I had the whole thing reversed, and what did I remember, and how do I proceed to buy things in the future to build my own factory and start making our own equipment. So it was a very, very good educational process, and my background had been in purchasing equipment for our grocery chain. So consequently, I had a good background on what to purchase and how to look for the right things.
And obviously, there came a point where Overland concluded that it would no longer be feasible, practical to continue importing brass. And I'm sure there was a certain amount of pain involved in that. Without asking for any inside stories, what sort of drove Overland out of the market, if in fact that's what happened?
What I guess you have to go back and look at 9/11. 9/11 affected everything, all of our buying. One of our big buyers lived in New Jersey. He averaged about $11,000 to $12,000 on models every month. And his comment to me was, I had my office, I watched both planes go into the towers, and I stopped buying because I figured my life and my family were more important than anything else involving models. And I think that affected an awful lot of people in every aspect of their life. And I know I had a flight to Birmingham, England that night. Of course, obviously I didn't go, but I was building models then in China for a company called OCS, and we were building mining equipment models. So when I went to China, I didn't just build model trains, I was building mining equipment, P&H excavators, no scale. And so I tried to make sure that Cheyenne Industries was not just model trains, it was far beyond that. So we were building Peterbilt trucks and HO scale. And it was everything was always exciting. That was the nice part about my life with Overland. It was evolving every day. I worked probably 12, 15 hours a day. Many times I'd call Mr. Cho at 3 o'clock in the morning, my time, and he'd wonder why I was still up. But I was constantly building stuff. I was researching all the time. Even during during the 80s and 90s, Overland was averaging 4 shipments a month. A lot of importers weren't getting any more than 4 shipments a year. So I was constantly on the road researching. I had the pleasure of, when we built the Centipede diesels for Pennsylvania, I contacted Baldwin Locomotive. They were still in business. They sent me all the material, the photographs, everything. And it's interesting because it's like you say, when you meet people, then it's what do you have? What can I build with? And Overland existed only not because of me. I was a provider, but the source of the modeler, who had more information about a particular product than I did, we worked with that. And that's what helped us improve and get better models.
Cool. And what do you assess the present market and direction as being? Is there any future for brass importing? And if so, what might unfold?
Well, if I were in the business today, I'd be scared to death. I look at what we were producing and then what is being produced today, and the cost of that product is so out of reach for the average person. I mean, you buy a locomotive today, a steam engine, you're going to be paying what, $6,000-7,000, and I don't know that there's that many people can afford to buy that. So it's difficult. Plus, in the 70s and 80s and the 90s, I was able to have total access to Union Pacific, BNSF, CSX. I had the privilege of being there and being allowed on the property. Today, you're going to go to jail if you get on the property, and they're just not willing to cooperate with you. So we were fortunate because I got to see the 855s for the UP. I got to see the turbines operate. I got to watch all the big power. And Union Pacific was just in our back pocket. I started working with them before I ever got into Overland, and they allowed me total access everywhere I went. So I was never refused to anywhere on the property.
I have it in my head from somewhere that Overland imported over 1 million brass models. Is that figure accurate? And if so, what do you want to tell us about it?
Well, let's put it this way. We produce somewhere in the vicinity of 3,000 different models. I would say your figure is probably not correct, but I would put it in the vicinity of probably 300 to 400,000 models in all scales.
Yeah. We've got a question that was in the chat room. and I guess I'll just phrase it open. I think there may be larger issues, but do you think that there would be any more practicality in terms of future imports in using some sort of hybrid model, the brass die-cast hybrids?
I suppose there is. I think Broadway Limited does some of that, if I remember right. We just the brass is the most durable. You never have a problem with it as far as degradation. But I think it's like the Zanuck frames and all the things that could happen with that. And as the quality of Zanuck ruined all the stuff, the drivers, the frames were all problems. And we had to get away from that, had to go to a higher quality. And I don't know how you would do it with hybrids. And I know there's so much you can do with 3D today. And it's just a totally different animal than what I'm used to.
The question for you, we've got a compliment for the painters that Overland used. Were those Korean painters? Were they domestic? If you can tell us who they are, if they're still working. I think there are probably a lot of people who would love to have that information.
I think that you have to look at the fact that probably most of them have passed. One that was used an awful lot was Bill Danforth. When I first got involved with model trains, he was wanting to build for us or paint for us, and I said, I don't like your paint work. And I said, I said, I've got to sell this to a customer. That customer's got to be able to accept that quality. And he improved. He greatly improved. And so he painted for me Gwen Birch. And Gwen, sad enough, is not of good health with cancer. Danforth has passed away. Bill, Jeff Lemke still exists out there. Jeff's a good gentleman.
I think Jeff is on the program today.
Yes, he is. I believe so.
Yeah.
But to find enough painters today to do all the work, no one's alive to do that. I mean, there's so much paint work to be done. But most of the gentlemen that painted for me were personal friends. And I knew their quality before I ever asked them to help. And the surprising thing, back when I moved to China, I was I had to do some painting on my mining equipment. And I just called up Gwen one day and I said, Gwen, who I'd known for 20 years, I said, would you be willing to come to China and work for me for a couple of months at a time? And he said, just send me a ticket. So Gwen did come and help our factory. We ended up producing some extremely fine models and very good painting. So that helped out. But yeah, there's been a number of people, but like I said, a number of them have also passed.
We have just a couple more minutes for questions, and we will use the conventional raising your hand, either with using the Zoom automatic hand or just waving a hand in front of the screen. Anybody have any questions for Tom? In order to do that, you may have to give us some video.
Looks like Walter put his hand up there.
Okay, Walter, you're muted.
Just real quick, Tom, I just want to say hello and kind of a blast from the past. My mentor was one of your customers, Dr. Samuel Sachs of Dolor Models.
Yes.
I bought quite a bit of your product through him, and he was a fine friend and mentor. And I just wanted to mention him to you that if he was here today, he certainly would say hello to you.
Well, I appreciate, because customers were really our number one concern. A happy customer makes everything desirable. I mean, it's without the customer, I wouldn't be here. You know, that's the most important thing. I think as we built models, as we improved, we tried to listen to the customer. It's why we'd go to a show and be out there to answer questions and to show product, because I felt that was the most important thing that I could do. And I like your background.
We had a
Thank you,
question.
Tom, big Milwaukee guy.
We got a question about the casting process, particularly for castings like frames and cylinders. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Well, casting, like your frame, not many frames were cast. They were stock brass. I know that we produced some, like for the Proto 48 people, we produced some nickel plate Burke frames, and they were out of milled brass frames. And that was the best frame you could ever get, but that cost a whole lot more than producing the regular frame.
And in fact, for those Zamac frames that were produced for the nickel plate Burks, as you are sadly aware, there was a lot of warping on those. You had a short run of those done in brass, and I have procured the drawings for that, and have had another set of frames milled. So they're in stock. You can go on my company, a little plug, Wit and Wisdom Models. We have the frames for the Overland Burks.
Right, because that was, I think, because of what yourself and John Eichman and a few
Yes,
people up there in Fort White.
Carl. Yes, yes, and
But
we
now cylinders,
we appreciate your work in getting those actually executed.
sure.
The first
The
run.
cylinders are really castings and wrapped brass, so you don't ever have a cast cylinder as such.
All right, listen, we need to move along, but before we do, I've seen a couple of notes in the chat room, and I certainly would endorse them. Tom, you have done a great service for quality models, and an even greater service for the modelers. And since O-scale does not get the attention that some of the other bigger scales do, we are particularly appreciative of the many efforts that Overland did over the years in terms of improving the quality of models for the scale. It's really been an uplifting experience, and I suspect many of us have green boxes stowed under the layout or somewhere prominent. And we still, when we go to Chicago, for example, there's still a lot of green boxes out there.
That's correct. Well, you know, I have to say that doing Overland models was a passion, something I love to do, and required a lot of time. And I have to thank my wife, Janice, and Brian, because they were also the people in the background of help. And a wife that can put up with a husband that spends time in 2 months in China and 2 months in Korea, and come home occasionally and interrupt her life. It's a lot of things to be thankful for. But I also wanted to say, a special thanks to Art Garrettson. Art was our draftsman, and he had a knack of being able to draw models very well. And Art and I measured almost all of our diesels and a lot of our freight cars, and we didn't go from plans when it got to diesels. We got accessed by the railroad or by the manufacturer to be on property and actually measure and then draw every single model we made. So it's the people we have that made up the organization of Overland is what made it all possible.
Well, thank you. Ultimately, you were the leader of the crew, though, and you made it possible. And everyone in the hobby and everyone in the scale, thanks you very much for it.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tom. Thanks for sharing your time, and we are delighted.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
We recently had the National Model Railroad Association National Convention in Novi, Michigan, in the Detroit area. And historically, NMRA and O-scale have not necessarily mixed well, but we are changing that. And O-scale has played a more prominent place in NMRA than it did. We've had a very good and cooperative relationship with NMRA. And one of the people who was in attendance and very active in Michigan is Joe Barker. Joe is a director of the O-scale Central and our membership chair. And I have asked Joe to give everyone a briefing on where O-scale fit. I look at I think it's about 18,000 members in NMRA, and I look at them and I say that's 18,000 potential converts. So we need to be paying attention to them, and the kind of work that Joe Barker and Skylar Shippey and Eric Peterson did in Novi is much appreciated. And Joe is going to give us a little rundown on the National Convention. Joe, thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I attended the convention in Novi along with Eric Peterson, Skylar Shippey, and a few other O-scalers. And I'd like to share my screen and show you the O-scale layouts that I saw during the convention. So I'm going to start sharing, and hopefully this will work. Okay. Okay. What you're seeing on the left hand side of the slide is the welcome booth in the hotel in Novi, Michigan. And on the right hand side is myself on the left and Eric Peterson on the right, manning the O-scale central table. We had a blast talking to people about O-scale, and there was a lot more. The official numbers for O-scale attendees was around 45, I think, people, but there was a lot more people where O-scale 2-rail was their secondary hobby interest. The first layout intended was Norm Charbonneau's Northbrook Railroad. This is a 3-rail scale railroad. And this is some of the things that's shown. PR 1950s 3-rail scale, about 1,045 feet of the railroad. The basement, though, was about a 2,000 square foot basement, and he had a huge shop with a 3D printers and other very nice shop equipment that he helped to build his railroad with. He used Atlas 3-rail track with a 45-inch minimum radius. Control was mostly Lionel Legacy and Trainmaster Command Control, but his newer engines he was putting in Bluenami. On his used a lot of MTH engines, but he converted all of them to Lionel Legacy. And all his equipment had KD couplers and was weathered. So let's start looking at his railroad. This is his shop, and he took off the windows to his shop and so that you could see the interior. All the interiors, well, I wouldn't say every building, but a great many of the buildings on his railroad were had interior detailing. And this is the interior detailing on the shop. I think this is one of the best pictures that I took through that open window. I couldn't get close enough to take the interior details of many of the other buildings that he had. Here's a picture of his, right outside the shop, of his engine service facilities. The other side of the engine service facilities. The turntable. I've forgotten who made the turntable, but it was one of the major manufacturers. It may have been a mill house. Here's a picture of his train downtown. It's another one of his buildings, had a fully detailed interior, which you could see through the windows. His city, which is supposed to represent central Pennsylvania during the 1950s. Here's his trains. You notice all the boxcars are weathered, and the Pennsylvania Railroad type signaling, which incidentally worked. One of the advantages of three rail is that it's easier to wire up the signals and make them work than it is in two rail. Again, more of his equipment. This is a major yard in his layout, and with the labor temple in the background and so forth. This is a video. Hope the sound comes through on your computers. It doesn't come through on mine. But both these engines had sound and smoke.
That's our problem, not enough hoppers.
That's right. And it's all the hoppers on this train are weathered, and I think this is a good representation of Pennsylvania railroading in the 1950s. Pennsylvania Railroad was the largest coal hauler in the nation, even though the C&O and Norfolk and Western were, built to haul coal. Pennsylvania actually hauled more. This is sort of an overview of one end of the layout. He painted the ceiling black and then had lights shining down on it. So it was set like a stage. The other side of the layout. This is a diesel, and this particular diesel had Bluenami in it. And I was able to acquire the diesel on using my phone and run it back and forth on the siding that it was set on. And it had excellent sound. This shows the Lionel command control system and the Lionel power supplies. If you are familiar at all with the Lionel legacy systems, you would instantly recognize this equipment. But most O-scale two-railers probably aren't into Lionel command control. So you may be unfamiliar with it, but it's an excellent control system. And this is Norm. And Norm is notable for being one of the younger members of the O-scale community. So, and there's a lot of videos of his layout online, and he's been featured in Railroad Model Craftsman and other major magazines several times. So you can find a lot more, especially on YouTube, about his layout if you're interested. The next layout I went to see was on Wednesday morning of the convention, and this is the Detroit Model Railroad Club in Holly, Michigan, and they are situated in an old theater. So the building's is a former movie theater. The layout size, or at least the room size, is 3,000 square feet, according to the brochure that we got. And they have 1,200 feet of hand-laid track. And it's all steel track, which to me, the track work was absolutely amazing. Transition error, but they were running modern trains too. The curves, the generous curves, were also amazing. Controls by DCC with, and I think the throttles were wireless. And they had multiple levels with the major passenger facility on the lower level. So when you walk in, this is what you see of a huge room with a viewing stage for visitors on the right. This is one of those generous curves that they have. And I saw several trains transit this curve, and it was really amazing. And when I showed this picture to some of my model railroad friends, they were just taken aback by how gorgeous this scene is as the trains wind, or this curve moves through this magnificent scenery. Here's more of their track work, all hand laid. And you can see how smooth it is and how well it flows. And all the trains that I saw running were really magnificent. Fortunately, the videos I took didn't turn out, so that's the reason I'm not going to show any of them. This is a station that was one of the major buildings, and I thought it was one of the finest buildings on the layout. And I'm sure that Skylar Shippey, who is president of the club, is going to give a presentation on the club at some point, and he can tell us more about this station. Again, some of the service facilities, the coaling center, the freight yard. This is the backdrop, and I thought the backdrop was really good. The clouds are a little bit, aren't as fluffy as you might see in clouds, but from a distance, this backdrop is really magnificent. And here's something you might like, David. It's a Berkshire Pierre Marquette. And I understand that the original still exists. I don't know who made this model, but again, Skylar could probably tell you whether it's brass or made by someone else, I don't know. I always liked dinosaurs, so I took a picture of their Sinclair station. Again, some of the shops. This is one of the lower levels. They have a coal mine in the foreground that could hold a lot of coal cars. And this whole section of the layout is being redeveloped. And I thought it's going to look very nice. And the trains basically climb around in a continuous circle to go around the layout, and then go back to the staging yards, which are underneath the layout. Here's the passenger facility underneath the layout. This is about 7 feet below the major layout. Here's another picture of the passenger facilities. And a lot of famous trains here. I saw the 20th Century Limited, the Crusader, the Broadway Limited, all in 2-rail-O. And they are also running some modern trains, and this is one of them. And this is me and Skylar Shippey. And why isn't it moving on? Oh no, don't tell. Okay. The next layout I went to see was Dick Tomlinson's Michigan Shoreline layout. And it's a freelance Michigan layout, 1,972 square feet, 1,500 feet of hand-laid track, wireless DCC control, and automatic block signaling. I don't think the Detroit Club has its signaling installed yet. And that's only about 40% of this layout was had the scenery completed, and I didn't take pictures of the uncompleted scenery, so here's portions that were completed. Very nice Michigan town scene. Nice stockyard loading. This is the roundhouse. This bridge is absolutely magnificent. I didn't see any trains operating on it while I was there, but again, I'd like to find out more about this bridge and who built it. They had a Norfolk and Western. Tell me what this model is right now, but in any case. And again, another video. The track work here was, I thought was absolutely beautiful. All hand laid with the track beautifully ballasted. And here's another train that was running. It's 1776, and I'm a sucker for anything painted red, white, and blue with the number 1776 on it. And you can see some of its signals. Eric Peterson told me that the signals aren't properly located, but they look great to me. And here's Dick. Dick is 89 years old, and up to last year he was going skiing. So his father was one of the original people who founded the National Model Railroad Association. So Dick's been into trains since he was a kid. Okay, this is another thing at the National Model Railroad Show, Sunset Third Rail. And this is their booth. And the person shown here is Jay Escamilla. Jay is a member of my model railroad club here in California. And he joined the club when he was 10 years old. He's in his mid-30s, and he is in the process of buying Sunset models from Scott Mann. And the sale is supposed to go through in January of 2026. And at that point, Jay is going to move Sunset from here in the San Francisco Bay Area out to Colorado, where he lives. And his fiance is going to graduate school. And once his fiance finishes graduate school, Jay is going to, his plan is for he and his fiance to move to Texas, buy some lands where they can build a house for their family, and also build a building where he can run Sunset models out of the building on the same property. And Jay's plan is to continue the Sunset HO line, of course, but he's also has big plans to continue the O-scale line. The Amtrak model in front of him is a model of the home-built Southern Pacific Dome car that Southern Pacific ran on their daylights, but then when Amtrak took over all the passenger service in 1971, they acquired a few of these domes, repainted them into Amtrak paint schemes. This is actually a 3-rail car, and I'd love to have been able to buy it, but it wasn't for sale. This so Jay has big plans for Sunset. He's just released a new catalog, and for all of those of you in the Midwest and in the East, he plans to broaden Sunset and Golden Gate's product line to include more models from those areas. As many of you know, Sunset's, most of their models have been San Francisco, California based and Western based, even though they've done a lot of Pennsylvania Railroad things too. So Sunset Models is going to be moving along to some people in younger hands. Okay, this is a Lego building. And the reason I'm including this building here, because I thought it was magnificent. And also I thought it was probably about the size of an O-scale building. If someone in O-scale is going to build the Michigan Central Station in Detroit, the banquet speaker at the convention was the architect for the restoration of this building. And it was a woman, and she talked about how the building is being restored. The lower section, which is sort of a Art Deco, the building was opened in 1910 by the Michigan Central and several on their railroads. And the Michigan Central occupied the office building. Today, the lower section has been completely restored, and it's used for events in the Detroit area. And it's a Ford family that did the restoration. Oh, come on, move. Okay, here's the other side of the building. I count 15 floors. The Ford company occupies the bottom 3 floors, and they use that for their design and development purposes. Then Google has the 4th floor of the building, and they're using that for some type of training facility. And then the top 10 to 11 floors are going to become a luxury hotel. And they're also negotiating with Amtrak to return to the station. Evidently, the passenger tracks are still installed behind the building. So it could become a passenger station once again. But the interiors that she showed us of the restoration and how they took out all the graffiti and everything else in the station and where everything had been deteriorated. They refurbished all the chandeliers, which had been stolen, but they found a few of them. They made replicas of everything, and it's really a magnificent restoration of an iconic building, an iconic railroad building. I took pictures of the O-scale models at the People's Choice Awards. This is one of them. Nice Alco switcher.
That appears to be a Lee Turner model. Lee is the premier weatherer in O-scale, and he's primarily a Lehigh Valley modeler, but he just does magnificent work.
It does say Turner. I can see the corner on the piece of model content. I didn't really copy down who did what. Oh, come on. Did the share go away? Okay, there we are. This is a passenger car. It was a Golden Gate Depot passenger car. This is one side of it that it had an upgraded interior. And This shows the interior. This is the left side, the right side. This is a close-up of the lounge area, and I was amazed to see the car attendant serving a beer, the ashtrays and everything else that was authentic for this era of cars. Again, here's another picture of the interior and the dining tables on the left. Here's the kitchen, and if you really look closely, you can see the cook inside the kitchen with pots and pans. Yeah, here's another picture of the dining area and also the washrooms. Here's a picture of the baggage area, and it has a sink, a toilet. Here's another O-scale car. This one says it was made by Dave Thornton. This is the only O-scale train that was in the models shown there. Okay, these are some of the O-scale buildings. I thought this one was really nice. This is a Menards gasoline station that was super detailed. Menards makes very nice buildings, but this fellow went in and really super detailed it. And you could see inside with the cash registers and everything else inside this building. Okay, this is a building with graffiti on it. Again, super detailed. Here's the church. And again, here's the O-scale central display booth at the show, and that concludes this presentation. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Joe. That's great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Any questions?
I'd suggest that anyone that O-scale members should get involved with the NMRA. It's a great organization, and you'll see some fantastic modeling if you go to one of their conventions.
Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate your input. I don't see any questions right now, and it would be probably time to move along. Anyway, Kurt says Best in Show was an O-scale Proto 48 steam engine, which was also, by the way, a Lee Turner Lehigh Valley 484, and it was magnificently done. Thank you. Well, thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it. You can take down your screen share.
Okay. Let me see how I get rid of it. Okay, it says, come on. I didn't think I'm having trouble getting my cursor back. Oh, there it is.
Poof. Okay, there we are. Thank you very much, Joe. And by the way, Kurt Thompson pointed out that Lee Turner's Proto 48 Lehigh Valley 484 received 125 points out of a possible 125 points. It doesn't get any better than that. And by the way, when I was at both St. Louis and at the Texas NMRA conventions, there was not a single O-scale piece of rolling stock in the contest. So we didn't exactly bowl them over, but there is good O-scale representation and really good quality. So things are looking up. Obviously, we want to encourage everybody to enter their O-scale models in NMRA and any other meeting or convention or show that has a contest. Thank you. All right, the third segment is an interesting one. We've had a lot of discussion in recent months and years about O-scale specific train shows. And a lot of it has been accompanied by or preceded by a certain amount of pain, financial and organizational. And obviously things like the COVID pandemic have impacted mostly adversely on our shows. And figuring out how we deal with train shows going forward is a topic of considerable interest both to the hobby in general and the sponsors for the shows in particular. These are people who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears and money into these events, and it is important that we have the best information that we can. And we have two folks who have a bit different perspectives on this, but both really leaders in O-scale and well-respected sponsors of the show. And I want to have some brief presentations from them on where they're coming from on shows, and then I want to get any feedback from the audience. We have been gathering a lot of information right now. Jim Kello, who is the host emeritus of New Tracks Modeling and who is an O-scale traction modeler, is preparing an article now for the next issue of O-scale Resource, and he has collected input and comments from a lot of folks. But I'd like to start by talking briefly or having Rod Miller talk with us. Rod has been the driving force in O-scale West for an extended period of time. Rod is a former president of O-scale Kings and has been a driver not just for O-scale West, but in the scale generally. He is a custom builder of great repute. And one of the things that he has done very thoughtfully is prepare a survey of people who came and people who didn't come to O-scale West. And I'd really like to hear from Rod as to where he is coming from, where he how he assessed the survey and where he sees things going. And I really appreciate you coming on the program, Rod. Welcome. You don't look like you're muted, but I'm not hearing your audio. It doesn't say muted, but we're getting no volume. Is there a 12-year-old in the house?
Oh, wait.
Give us a test. Test. While Rod sorts his...
Did that do
Yeah.
it?
There we go. Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
I hope you heard all the nice things I said about you.
I did. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good.
Some of it was lying, but I won't worry about that right now. So one of the recent O-scale West continued to trend where the attendance of the meet was diminishing, and this year we really got hit hard by hotel contract. And so we decided we need to do a reset and reinvent the OSC West. But the question is, what do we want to reinvent it to? So we decided to survey our attendees. And so we developed a survey and distributed it by email to 250 people. And 150 of them responded to it. And I'll try to get through the results as fast as I can. If I can share screens. Okay. Are you seeing my entire screen?
Not yet. There we go. There's something.
Okay. All right. So let me find it. Okay. So the first thing we decided to do is answer some critical questions of what, when, and where. And so this is the response to our first question, which is what days, what format works for you? As you can see, Friday and Saturday were overwhelmingly preferred. And the second question is the what? What do you want to do at the OSC meet? So you can see that the longest line is a swap meet. The next longest line is home and club layout visits. And the next line is OSC operating layouts on site. And so we have our marching orders. We know we need to do what we need to provide. And so then the other thing that's always been contentious with OSC West is our classic original date for OSC West was the first weekend in February. And when we moved the meet to the hotel in Santa Clara, that worked until there was a Super Bowl that weekend, and the hotel said, we got more money coming in this way. And so we moved the meet to Memorial Day, and we kind of got stuck there. And that was something we need to fix. As you'll see, the traditional date, end of January to early February, is strongly preferred by people. And the next is the April-May timeframe. So we're looking at a date for the 2026 meet. The preferred date is the last weekend in January, next to the last weekend in January. And the other date is the first weekend in March. And so we're actually actively searching for sites right now. So this is kind of not as much about meets as about where to have OSC West. People still like it in the Bay Area. We gave lots of alternatives, and of course, you see these other responses are people making suggestions to the question. This is an interesting one. There's early registration discount. Would that make it more likely? And 31% said it wouldn't make any difference, and 37% said not sure. So that's 2/3 of our attendees really don't have a great desire for an early registration discount, which is important when it comes to budgeting what we can afford to do for the next year's meet.
Huh.
So this is a question. I'm going kind of fast, but this information is available in a PDF file. That's what I'm doing. I'm scrolling a PDF file right now. So contact me and I'll get a copy of this to you. We did make a minor modification to it to copyright it. And so that's the version that you will get. It'll have a copyright note on every page. So I'm going to skip through. This is all about hotel rooms. On-site food, not important, at least not preferred by half of the people. And reasons for not staying at the hotel. Reason for staying at the hotel, people want to be at the meet. They want to be walking distance. They can share their room. They can use your record points. It's a good location. And then this question, I combine coming to OSC West with a business trip to the San Francisco Bay Area. And this is the reasons it didn't stay at the hotel. Room rate, stay with friends. The room rate was okay, but the hotel, other costs in the hotel were too high. And of course, we failed to give the option of, well, I live locally. And so that's what all these all these answers are. Now, this is an important question for us. Where do you get your information? So by far and large, most people get their information from the website, post to social media, post to online forums like groups.io, print magazines, online magazines, and friends were pretty important. They got a lot of information from friends. And rushing forward, I don't know if the network can keep up with me. So this was a question, I'll scroll through this. The best way for OSCAL West to get updates about the meet to you. One person said they wanted hard copy by email, and everybody else out of 151, 150 said, send us email, we'll look at the website. So it's all digital. And here's another interesting question. Where do you get your information about model trains and events? And this is something that it's certainly applicable to all of us, I think. From friends and club members, 61%. Facebook was 33%. Groups.io was 38%. Other social media was about 13%. The magazines came in here. Narrow Gazette came in at the leader of the pack for magazines. That's probably because OSCAL West includes a segment on narrow gauge. Model Railroader, Model Craftsman, the OSCAL Trains Annual, and the various annuals. So a lot of it is, notice that Facebook and groups.io are strong, are used by a lot of people. And again, we had other contributions to the questions.
Teams meeting for trains.
Okay, and here's, I'm sorry, here's reasons you came. The first question is, I always come because it's a habit. But look at this one, to see friends, 43%. Now, then this is the first shopping item, 40%. This is a bit, this says that I'm in business. This one says I'm considering downsizing. I'm considering switching and wanted to check out O-scale/S-scale/narrow gauge. This is I prefer to buy trains where I can handle them and look at them. Other activities, the location, San Francisco Bay Area. Some people like the hotel really well. And interestingly enough, the people who came to check out the change, 80% of them said they're happy with the scale they're in. And why didn't you come to OSCAL West? So notice the dates. The Memorial Day weekend just is the beginning of the summer activity, and there's a lot of conflict with other activities for that date. So like I say, for 2026, we're looking at 2 dates early in the year. And let's see, registration cost was too high. Registration costs are interesting. I've been tracking registration costs for other meets. And for instance, the most recent one I looked at is the SN3 Symposium that is being held next April. And their early registration cost is $75. And if you miss that, you're going to pay $80 to $85 to register. And the OSCAL West registration was $50. And I think that I used to think that was a really high cost, but I think that by keeping it $50, you're actually falling behind, which is a good place to be. Let's see. This is an interesting one here. My interest is 3-rail trains, and there are no 3-rail trains at OSCAL West. So 10% of the people said that. So we're actually going to figure out a way to subtly promote 3-rail scale trains. And this one is too far away for me. or health or age issues prevent me from coming. And these four categories here, I thought were interesting. They were all buying and selling online. And I don't remember buying and selling on eBay, buying and selling through groups.io, buying and selling through O-Scale Yard Sale, and I think it's buying and selling through word of mouth. And so that's a pretty small percentage of how people buy and sell things. How many meets have you attended in the last few years? So I'll stop there. The feedback is, we had a lot of feedback. It's all verbiage, and it's as you can see, it will take a long time to go through it. So I will stop there and take questions.
Well, that's great. And I want to indicate real admiration and respect for Rod being very proactive and getting out from under the historical model. And he may be too bashful for this, but I'm not on his behalf. The arrangements only go so far if you don't have people to carry them out. And one of the things that has happened is that the core group that was working with Rod over the years has thinned out, and unfortunately, for many purposes, has not been replaced. So if you want O-Scale West or any other O-Scale train show to continue, we're going to have to not just support it by showing up, but we're going to have to work with the show sponsors to come up with some volunteers, some people to participate in the leadership. And I would note that with the internet and websites and so on, you don't necessarily have to be living next door to Rod in order to be able to contribute to the success of the show. So I think that people need to think about, if you want this to continue, not only do the arrangements have to be good, and Rod's obviously done a good job in figuring out what the most viable arrangements may be, but we got to have people to help. So anyway, I'll put in that plug for Rod. His email, if I remember correctly, is something real complicated, like rodmiller@rodmiller.com. I get that right?
Oh, it's rod@rodmiller.com. Even less complicated.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for the plug on excuse me. Thank you for the plug on O-Scale West Help Us. We do need help. And as you pointed out, David, you don't have to live in the West Coast to help. Most of the work we do for the meet can be done remotely. And so if you want to help, email me, as David points out. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will say I chaired the 2018 O-Scale National in Rockville, and we set up an executive committee of 6 people, and we had a support group, and I have to say it was one of the most rewarding experiences of my modeling. You really build a team, you work together, you accomplish something, and it is a very positive experience. It's not just work; it's something to really work together, build a team, build a community. And I would encourage anybody who has not yet volunteered to find a project, and O-Scale West is one such project, and get on board with it. Thank you, Rod. Appreciate it. We will try and incorporate your survey and your thinking into comments that people make. Rather than stop just for O-Scale West questions, let's go ahead, and I'd like to get another perspective on this. and that is from Rich Yoder. Rich and I go back a long time. I piggybacked on the first project that he worked on in his brass import business, which was a C&O hopper, and I managed to persuade him to do a supplemental run of nickel plate hoppers for me. And we've been in communication and coordinating ever since. Rich runs the Strasbourg show and has for a number of years. And just to get his thing, the way that he runs a very successful show with relatively low overhead is something that I think anybody who is contemplating a show elsewhere in the country should be aware of. And I wanted, since most people don't get to look behind the curtain at a show like that, I persuaded Rich to come and give us a short description of sort of how the Strasbourg show works. What are the elements? What are the moving parts that he needs to work with? And I thank Rich for sharing that with us. Rich.
So, hi, David. So I don't know how to get my picture front and center. Can you hear me? That's really
Yes.
what counts. So the most important thing about running a show, as far as I'm concerned, is that there's cooperation. And that cooperation has to exist within a regional area. And that regional area that we cooperate with is the Northeast, stretching from Massachusetts to Ohio down to Northern Virginia. And all of the shows that operate within that area are very consciously aware of the dates of the shows that are operating within that area. So we do our best to never step on someone else's toes, because we realize that A, we're all drawing from the same attendee pool, and B, we're all drawing from the same table holder pool. And table holders might be people that I refer to as weekend warriors, or they might be, businesses such as Allegheny Scale Models, or Just Trains / that's Karen and Bob Levezzi, and Sunset, who is typically present at our show. And there are many, many other smaller guys out there who are producing things that we as modelers use and purchase. So that's an important thing to recognize. We have always been very, very consciously aware of dates of other show holders. So that's number one. Number two, there is 17% of the United States mass, people live within 3.5 hours of Strasbourg. So if you figure out what our little tiny percentage of O modelers are, that's pretty much what we feel as though we have access to. Okay, so that covers people that come from Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, Ohio, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, New York City, Long Island. And so that's sort of the area that we pull from. Now, how do we manage to do that? We share as much information as possible amongst all the regional shows. And that is, who are the attendees? Who are the guys that are modeling in O scale? We share as much in the way of email addresses. And, that is a big thing to make everybody consciously aware of when the shows do occur. And we try to always, in advance of the shows, let people know who are the dealers that are going to be there. One of the dealers I failed to mention was the All Nation line, John Wubble. has a lot of people who attend Strasbourg to pick up parts. His business is increasing. John's doing a great job at revitalizing and listening to people and producing things for his business that he needs. The fact that our show is a one-day show, and I'll even go as far as to say our show is a 4-hour show. We are full bore from 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning till 1 o'clock, which means that everything is fast and furious. That's the way the show has been since its existence. If you pass it the first time, there's a great chance it's not going to be on the table the second time you pass it around. And everybody coming to that show knows that. So we have some serious diehard modelers that come to our show. And snooze and you do lose. Now, what do we see in attendance? What do I see in attendance? We have 3 shows in a year's time. We have an early April show. We have a April show that is 1 week before, and this is important, 1 week before the TCA show in York, Pennsylvania. Now, for those of you who don't know what TCA is, that's Train Collectors Association. That's 3-rail. So that's where over the years, your Lionel, your MTH, your Bachman, your Atlas, all the big boys always went to all those shows. That's not true anymore. The big boys aren't spending the money to go to York anymore. They don't show up. They've stopped coming, and that is in part of the fact of COVID. COVID had to really help to put the squeeze on a lot of companies. But we still respect the fact that York's show, which is 1 week after ours, exists, because we know that there is a great number of our attendees that do go to that York TCA show. So they have a show in April. Our show is 1 week before. They have a show in October, and our show is 1 week before their show. Why do we care? Because we don't want to step on each other's toes. We also see a number of people that are retirees that come into the area that will come to our show and will also have a week of, visiting friends or traveling and seeing what's in the area, knowing that in another week there's another great train show to go to. So that happens. We know that happens. We also have one show in August. Now, our August show is our lowest attended show. And our August show this year, we had, and I'll share these numbers freely with you, we had 72 people walk through the front door. That's in addition to 70 people that were table holders / and/or helpers. So we had a whopping 140 people at that show. Now, the more interesting thing to be said about that is it's an opportunity for those guys to all get together. And there's one word here that I have to use that Rod danced around a little bit, and that is the word camaraderie. I think the use of the fact that the shows still exist today are in part reason because of all the inspiration that individuals get from the different shows and from their different friends who they bump into at the shows. We run some clinics. The clinics are typically related to scenery. And the scenery clinics are there to help guys because we see that as the big sticking point. Everybody can put track down, but they can't get scenery together. So the big thing that we're doing right now is trying to promote camaraderie. Our April show, we draw like 225, 230 people. Our September show draws about the same. So keep in mind, these are not super huge, large shows. I'm sharing attendance numbers with you. Rod, you could share attendance numbers with us as well, because I think what we're running into here, guys, is that there is no younger crowd coming along. We see very, very few faces under the age of 35, very few. And, that gets a bit concerning. So what we're trying to do is just keep track of as many people as we can. Like I said, I share information with all the guys from up in the Northeast as to who is coming to shows in the Northeast, and they share with me. So we get visitors who come from out of the area. We promote the heck out of the area, in particular the Strasburg Railroad. Secondly, the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum. We promote that. And there's a lot of other interesting railroad activity around central Pennsylvania. The biggest one that comes to my mind at this point in time is East Broadtop. Since that has been privatized and turned into a nonprofit, you'd be amazed at how many people come to spend a day or two at East Broadtop, either on the way to the show or on their way home from the show. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. The advertising method is Facebook. The advertising method is Groups.io. And on Groups.io, I'm reaching out to modeling groups, going as far as finding specific railroad modeler groups, Northern Pacific, Baltimore, Ohio, New York Central, the Pennsylvania Railroad, Nickel Plate, Western Maryland, Southern, Norfolk Southern, all those type groups that are out there that are modeling groups and groups that are just interested in railroading in general. Those are all places that I'm reaching out to try to pull out and extract, people who have interest in O-scale. And you'd be amazed at how many I touch upon in that fashion. So it's a never-ending battle to get new names to send information to try to boost the attendance and create greater attendance. The biggest crossover I see is HO modelers who can't see it anymore. And they are now converting to O-scale. Somebody told me that was true 20 years ago. And 20 years ago it was true because I was importing. And back at that point in time, I had a lot of customers who talked about the switch from HO to O because of the inability to see it anymore. So I give you that kind of information. That's how our shows run. We do not do any mailings. Yes, there is some Facebook time out there. I try to partner up with some other guys who run and have Facebook groups and ask them for some banner time, to help promote the shows and the hobby. And some of them are cooperative and some of them aren't. But it's not uncommon that I see some of my older customers show up at the shows. Guys that come in from California, guys that come in from Nevada, Nebraska, Alabama. We regularly have people that come up from Tennessee, from Georgia, from Florida. It's just not it's very common that we get a smattering of people from faraway states. They're not just coming for the train show, they're also coming from the area. So the area is in part a drawing card. Rod, I often wondered how Sacramento would be as a drawing card because of the historical significance and the rail yard and the museum out in Sacramento. I think that helps us a lot. And there you go. So if anybody has questions now.
Yeah, talk about the venue, because in the firehouse and your relationship with those people, and I know implicit in all this is not a hotel-based show. You don't have any room night guarantees or minimums or tip?
That is correct.
charges?
Lancaster County is a huge tourist trap. Huge tourist trap. If you can't find a room in Lancaster County, you must be blind, deaf, and dumb, because there are rooms everywhere. There are so many small inns and hotels I'd say within a 5-mile area. There's probably no fewer than 5 hotel chains, and there's probably 100 different places that are considered guest house or Airbnbs or bed and breakfasts. I mean, we don't tie to anything. If you can't look in a Lancaster County business directory or Lancaster County tourism and find 100 different places to stay, and they're all reasonable. They're all fighting for the same dollars, so they're very plentiful. Yes, we are at a fire company. The fire company is primarily a local fire company that is run by donations, and they have a very strong Amish and Mennonite membership. The place is as clean gets, and it's probably 15 years old, and it looks brand new. So they're very proud of what they have there in their facility. We take care of things for them, and they take care of us. And we've had a good working relationship with them. So more than that, I can't say. I think we've been lucky in many respects, and that's it. My overhead's not that great.
This is a model for smaller and regional shows that has been very stable, very well managed, and it generates a very loyal following. And I want to congratulate Rich on that, but also simply flag the model that he is talking about as a possible way to structure or revise scale specific shows.
It is a very I ask a lot of people, and we do have one main front door entrance, and I ask a lot of people, did you find anything good today? Or how was your day? Or what'd you get? Or how'd you sell? I don't run into people that are saying the show was terrible. I don't run into people that say everything was too expensive. It's always the exact opposite. Everybody that comes is happy. A lot of satisfied customers, a lot of satisfied dealers. I have people signed up already for the next show from last year. They signed up a year in advance. It's more of a hassle to keep track of all that in advance stuff. I have people that are signed up for the next 3 years on shows, and they don't even know that I'm going to be alive for the next 3 years. So some of that stuff gets a little out of hand, and you have to put a stopper on it. But we just have one heck of a good time in a local, in a very small area of the country. But in reality, if you can hop in a car and be here within 2.5 hours, you're in for a fun time. You're in for a real fun show. Yes, there is some food there. It's enough to sustain us. And that's about it.
Rich, thank you very much for sharing the model. It is
Sure.
a very workable model. It's got a lot of food for thought. You do a great job. The firehouse does a great job. We know the Amish guys and their kids that come and pour the coffee and clean up the waste baskets and tear the tables down after the show's over. It is like a community. Everybody's involved.
Back in the day when we decided that we were going to produce a show or have shows, and that was John Dunn and myself, God rest his soul, we looked at places like Philadelphia, okay, and Lancaster and York And I said, I don't want to go to a big city. I'd rather be suburban somewhere. I'd rather be a turnpike stop somewhere in the middle of nowhere before I go there. And so, you know, our mindset was a little different in where we wanted to be. And I know that's not possible for everybody, but I remember back in the day when we stopped at a place in Ohio for a show, and I said, well, what's here? And the guy said, well, there's a fire hall here, and that's where we've been going for years. And then it was, well, what's there? Well, we go to a Holiday Inn and they have a pool and the kids love it. And they have they have a nice big convention room that they rent us for cheap. So I've been to all kinds of shows all you know, over the time. Up in the New England states, they're in a church rectory basement. They're, you know, in an Elks Hall, all kinds of places. And a lot of those shows are looking at the overhead. So think outside of the box.
Thank you. All right, listen here. I need an indulgence from the guys who are in the audience, and that is use the chat and write down your comments or questions, and we will make sure that they get funneled into the article that's being prepared by Jim Kello. Make sure that it gets funneled to other people who are sponsoring shows. We will happily ask Rod and Rich to make themselves available if somebody's considering sponsoring a show. This is really a part of the community, but we would like your feedback. And if you will give it to us in the chat, that would be even better because it'll be written down and we will make sure that it gets forwarded. Rod and Rich have both given us a lot to think about and have done some very positive things, not only with their own shows, but with their contributions to the scale in general. We are running.
David?
Go ahead, Rod.
Excuse me, David. I have an update for you that just came in after I finished my presentation, that we have that survey data that I presented is now available for a download on the O-Scale West website. So if you go to oscalewest.com, you'll find my analysis of the survey. You scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, there's a link to download the data that I presented. And you can—
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the great part about that, you can read the comments and feedback. That is probably a third of the data that's there.
Great. You've made a real contribution just by going out and getting that much input, and I thank you very much for it.
Thank you.
By the way, I did not say hi to one of the true giants of O-Scale who was on the call today, and that is Ed Bomber. Ed has been so much of a contributor over the years. He's a great kit builder, a great kit basher, a very modest guy, but he's done a lot of really good modeling, and I just wanted to say a shout out to him. Okay, we need to move along. I'm always getting flack from Eric Peterson that I make these programs way too long. I'm sure he's going to chew my ear after we get off the program, so I'm going to try and move it along real quick. Next month, the program will be on September 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have a couple of presentations, and we're still working on the rest of the program. Skylar Shippey is going to give us an in-depth tour of the Detroit Model Railroad Club, and he stands as heir to Dick Tomlinson's terrific layout. He was also at Ground Zero for the NMRA National, and I think we're going to have a clinic on weathering. not simply how do you get the pan pastels out of the container, but rather how do you make weathering work together to be convincing on the entire layout. It has been given once before. It had a very favorable impression. We're going to try it again. So watch for the update and the invitation. For the rest of the year, the dates are all on Sunday afternoons, October 19, November 16, and December 14. And those I'm going to be making a better effort to get those mentioned in the coming events section of the website. That's been on me not to do that better, more reliably. And I want to thank everybody for your participation. We are doing everything we can to advance two-rail O-scale and help the modelers in it. And we thank you for taking your valuable time to listen in and to contribute. And that concludes this part, the formal part of the program. And so we can stop recording. Greg, if you can do that, I would appreciate it. We do keep the link open so that if any person or persons have comments or questions, that's our sort of our good and welfare part of the program. Sometimes we get people saying, hey, you got any flocal paint? Sometimes we get sharing war stories. It's all good, but it's not really part of the formal program. And if you have not, please stay on long enough to give us some written feedback in the chat about your thoughts on O-scale specific shows. We've got some decisions to make. We've got some good people who need some help and support and information. So thank you very much. The program is adjourned. We will stay on to deal with the good and welfare. But thank you very much, and thank everybody who participated. It was especially neat to hear some of the war stories from Tom Marsh about Overland. That was really cool. Thanks a lot.
Quick question
All right.
to Rod.
Yes, sir.
Was it Rod at rodmiller.com, or what's the last part?
Well, that's my email, but a more direct way is you can now download that data directly from the O-scale West website.
Well, I
Go to
sent
the
you an email, so
oscalewest.com. I'm
I've
sorry.
already sent you an email, Rod, so hopefully you get it.
All right. Well, you're good. I'll take care of you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you,
Sam,
Carl.
thank you. I saw your email. Thank you.
Hi, guys. This is John Hartel. Hey, I joined a little bit late. My apologies. Is there a recording of this full meeting that we can watch, or just SOL?
Yes, no. It is uploaded. We have a YouTube channel. It is available through the O-scale Central website, oscalecentral.com. It will take, we're a little bit backlogged, so it may take as long as a month to get up. But all of the programs, with the exception of one where I screwed up and didn't record it, that's the disadvantage of live television run by amateurs. But with one exception, they all either are up or they will be up, including this one.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Questions, comments? And I'll leave it open anyway because I want to check out these. We're now up to almost 30 comments, and that's good. I want to go over the list and write the stuff down and pass it along. Anybody else? All right, our discussion then is over. I really want to thank everybody for participating. I'm going to keep this open because I want to jot down the comments that people are making, hopefully with regard to some of the O-scale shows. Thank you very much. And I'm going to stay here, but everybody else can, when you complete your comments and your homework, you can go home. Thank you.
Thanks. Really enjoyed it.
Where are you from, John?
St. Louis.
Okay. Did you make it to the RPM meet there?
No, I haven't made it to a show for several years, so I'm really slacking. I need to get back into it.
Well, you may know, but the St. Louis RPM, which of course is not really in St. Louis, but is in Collinsville, Illinois, we had a full-blown O-scale blitz there. And we had a sectional layout, 8x16, Proto 48. We had television with videos, play on O-scale. We've encouraged people to bring their O-scale models to the show, and what was long time exclusively HO&N, we've got a good penetration on that. So between now and then, we're going to be back next year, I hope, and would love to have you come bring your O-scale models and be part of the team.
I'd love it. Yeah.
Great.
I'm a
Thank
Proto
you.
48 guy, just for the record.
Okay, well, the 8x16 layout is Jim Cantor's nickel plate layout, and it is sectional, and he is an enthusiastic Proto 48er, as is Paul Hansen, who's doing the Indianapolis show.
Yeah, I'm familiar with both their work. They sure are. Yeah, and I've been to that show many times in previous years. It's really nice.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's very well run. I'm always impressed.
Would love to get to O-scale West one of these days. It's a little more challenging just because of the distance, but I try to make it to Chicago every year too. Just been too busy.
Well, look me up at Chicago. I'm going to try and make it to O-scale West myself. But thank you, and make it to St. Louis for sure. That's a local show for you.
Yeah, right across the river.
One of the advantages for people from east of the Rockies of an O-scale West date in January is it's a nice break from winter. Because winter in California is quite a bit different.
Yeah, no snow to shovel.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your contributions. Rod, it was particularly good to connect with you. I know we did it on short notice. I apologize for that. Sometimes that's just the way life works.
Yep. It's okay.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Thank you, David.